Hello Eurovision fans, my name is Yuval Rafael and I will be representing Israel in the next Eurovision. I can't wait to see you all in Basel.
Don't cry alone, darkness will fade, all the pain will go by.
The song is called New Day Will Rise, and before we start I would please try to keep the politics aside.
But of course, you know, Yuval Rafael is a survivor of the Nova Festival.
She's one of the 11 survivors of the massacre, which took place on the October 7th.
Sunshine in the day, the only song that my piano ever played.
You can just feel the pain in her voice too.
محمد هذا بكري عمري هذا عمري والله عمري والله عارف كل من شافه حبه كل من شافه ريحه على القلب البني آدم خفيف نص مكان.
תושבי עזה, זאת פניית הזרה האחרונה. תקיפת חיל האוויר נגד מחבלי החמאס הייתה רק הצעד הראשון. ההמשך יהיה קשה בהרבה, ואתם תשלמו את מלוא המחיר.
Jetzt kommt Herr Brecht dazu.
هذا اللي سووه لكل الناس الموجودين هنا في الصالة وفي المدارس الموجودين هنا. أكثر من 150 ل 200 شخص موجود كانوا هنا وعروهم واعتقلوا اللي بدهم إياه.
We're going to conquer Gaza and we're going to work together with our American allies in starting the Trump plan.
New day will rise.
It's giving me chills.
Everything in this world is political, and Eurovision is no exception to that. Moroccan Oil! Which is actually not Moroccan at all. Do you know where it comes from? Yes.
Art washing, where sponsorship of the arts is used to distract from or even attempt to legitimise controversial issues. In simple terms, it's a quick way to improve your image by association.
It's been a goldmine for the city and a touted success for the Brand Israel campaign. Its brief was to change Israel's image from a country at a war to a fun liberal playground, modern and welcoming.
If you're involved in an invasion of another country, you shouldn't get to come to the party.
Across Europe, some have chosen to boycott this year's Eurovision.
You know, we're seeing so many civilians killed right now, it's really impossible to watch. I refuse to let my, cultural institutions be used as cover for that.
Israel is not the human rights oasis. It is trying to sell itself as.
Even if you say goodbye, new day.
There are two ways to serve Israel. Serving in the army, literally serving, and the other one is serving Israel through the public relations, through PR. And Yuval Rafael, the Israeli singer from this year's Eurovision, like all other Israelis in the entertainment industry, they serve Israel through PR. Just check out this oldie but goodie about the importance of PR to the state of Israel.
לא ביקשנו ממך לשכב במערב. לא? לא, אבל יש משהו שאת כן יכולה לעשות בשביל המדינה. להזמין תייר לישראל. משרד התיירות מציג, כל אחד מביא אחד.
PR has always been very important to Israel. The crisis management type of PR, to be more specific. Which actually explains why Israel is allocating $150 million this year to sway public opinion. And Israel is upping its already massive budget for the public diplomacy abroad, not because its tourism needs a boost. This budget is allocated to ramp up the efforts to distract from the genocide. Did you hear about this Jewish American doctor who's on a mission in Gaza and his Instagram account is suspended because he's showing the world what is going on in Gaza? And here he is talking about the death toll in Gaza being much higher than the publicized 40, 50 or 60,000.
And the whitewashing performed by the American and Western European legacy media is directly responsible for 100% of the 100,000 kids that are acknowledged to be dead or which have yet to be found because they're buried under the rubble.
No wonder they need good PR. No wonder they had to find someone who survived October 7 to be part of Eurovision. And I want you to always remember what Israel is and does anytime you find yourself falling for their PR while watching the upcoming Eurovision.
And even if you say goodbye, you'll never go away.
When I first heard this song, I was like, wow, it's switching from English to French, basically covering all the bases, right? Making sure the English-speaking world and the Europeans are smitten.
Wow, sehr modern. Sind Sie Französisch?
The message is, we're one of you, Europe. And it's true, Israel is European, which is why it's so confusing when they keep pretending they're part of the Middle East. Or maybe actually it's not so confusing when you figure out what is actually going on there.
Why is everyone vying for control of Gaza? It's a small piece of land.
This is the last piece of land we have on the Mediterranean Sea.
And why does that matter?
Do you know that the closest point for the gas fields in the Mediterranean is Deir al-Balah in Gaza?
You don't say.
And the whole point of Israel's propaganda and PR is to distract you from its nature as a project, as a greedy, ruthless political project with interests in the region. And the propaganda works. Remember last year, the Israeli girl from last year at Eurovision, Eden? When she was singing, everyone was booing her. People were horrified, like the fans of Eurovision, and they still are. They're still talking about it now.
And I hope this year it will be better, because some people were very hateful towards Eden, which was very sad. She's so beautiful.
She's so beautiful. Do you think people are upset with Israel's participation in Eurovision because they find these girls ugly or have bad hair or bad makeup? No. And actually, the whole point of hiring these beautiful girls is to distract you from what Israel is. So yes, of course she's beautiful. But that's not why we're upset or trying to boycott Eurovision. And it's happening again this year. People are getting dazzled by the production and the gorgeousness of Yuval, the singer.
My God, she's gorgeous. What the heck? I mean, the music industry in Israel, what the heck?
This is how you know Israel should be giving a masterclass in gaslighting. They're so good. Because you see it in real time working on people. And this is why I'm here to talk to you about the boycott, the importance of boycotting Israel, culturally as well. Because boycott is, yes, economic as well, but it's also in culture, in arts.
Cultural boycott is an ethical, rights-based tactic with historical precedent.
How can I perform in Israel when millions of Palestinians cannot attend?
How can I play in Israel knowing that the government will use my show to whitewash its crimes?
How can I participate in U.S. cultural projects funded by an apartheid government?
And it's so easy to get lost in the narrative that Israel's trying to sell us because they're so good at selling the narrative. One could say they're becoming a bit sloppy, which is why they have to spend more money this year, but they have no problem spending more money. I already mentioned in last year's video that I did about Eurovision that the main sponsor of Eurovision is a company called Moroccan Oil, which is an Israeli company. And it's so interesting, when you search the net for any video to say that Moroccan Oil is an Israeli company, you only find very old videos, because they got very smart in recent years trying to hide that. Old reports about Moroccan Oil, like from 10, 12 years ago, it clearly says the woman who started it during her visit in Israel. She had a hair mishap and she was at a hair salon in Tel Aviv.
Our third story out front. Before I went to Israel to interview Prime Minister Netanyahu, we kicked around a few stories to shoot there, like vertical farming or Israeli tech companies. But then my eye caught this on my desk. It's called Moroccan Oil, and it's the hottest hair product in the world right now. And it's made in Israel. The company was started 6 years ago by Chilean native Carmen Tal. And as we found out, the idea of Moroccan oil didn't come from years of research.
Because of an accident that somebody damaged my hair, I happened to land in a beautiful salon in Tel Aviv.
But in recent years, this story has been, well, it's still the same, that she had a hair accident and she was at a hair salon, but it always says it's abroad. It never mentions Israel.
More than a decade ago, during a trip abroad, Carmen Tal had her hair treated in a tiny salon with a unique plant oil grown only in Morocco.
They know it's wise to hide the name Israel. But the evil genius in all this is that this Israeli brand is still sponsoring Eurovision while hiding. And what's even more genius is that the contestant from Israel this year is a survivor of October 7. so they can make you forget about the 16 months and going of genocide and slaughter and ethnic cleansing.
Hello, my name is Yuval Rafael. I'm a 23-year-old. I was at the Nova Music Festival with 4 other of my friends.
This was actually part of a longer interview that Yuval did over a year ago, a couple of months after October 7. And I'll be contrasting it with a breakdown of all the lies that were put out by Israel after October 7. Lies that have been debunked, like the lies by the group of volunteers called Zaka, whose stories, testimonials, became the basis of all the international coverage. We're going to talk later about the Zaka testimonials, but I want to give you a glimpse of one of the stories that were put out by Zaka about this pregnant woman that they saw, witnessed, and her stomach was cut open and the baby was taken out and was stabbed, and apparently had pictures of it, this volunteer.
She was shot in the back.
Kibbutz Be'eri has denied this account.
The story of the pregnant woman reported by Zaka is not relevant to Be'eri.
Yossi Landau insists he witnessed this scene at Be'eri.
If you want to see the picture, I have the picture of it.
Are you able to share the photographic evidence with us?
To show you. Yes. Where's my phone? Oh, I'm sorry.
But upon closer investigation, it turns out that the pictures he claims he had, were of the scene after the mother and the baby were not there. But he pretended they were of the baby, that he has evidence.
This is the knife they used.
Shot and killed, but...
Over here was the woman.
But that's the imagery after the bodies had been cleared away. Oh.
Yes. This is the baby.
I'm sorry to be graphic here, but I can't see a baby here.
You can't see the baby but this is the picture of the mother.
Okay.
For sure, we didn't think when we over there, we didn't think to camera everything.
We didn't think the camera and everything. What? Yet they continued to spread these lies, and these lies are persistent till today. And those lies became the basis of a documentary by that Facebook lady, Sheryl Sandberg.
The body was brutal, with a piece of metal stuck there.
Oh! Basically, you're looking at nothing. You're lying. You're a liar. These pictures that are bringing you to tears don't exist. Oh. Ew. This reminds me of another iconic moment from television history.
I never thought I could care for someone that would bring me to tears.
And while I don't believe a word this woman, Sheryl Sandberg, says, I do believe that the fear everyday Israelis feel is real. But those complicated feelings like fear and anger, you're directing them at the wrong place. They should be directed at Israel, which is causing all this, which is invested in keeping you afraid. Israelis are victims of a government that gaslights them since they're born. Since they're born, they're told, everyone wants to kill you, everyone wants to kill you, everyone wants to kill you. That's why when something like October 7 happened, it was everything they've ever been warned about. They lose the ability to think critically or question a lot of dodgy things about like how Israel killed a lot of its own citizens on October 7. Yes, Hamas fighters killed people, but so did Israel. And how there were warnings from Israeli intelligence about an impending October 7. We're going to break all this down in this video so that you have the full picture when Eurovision comes up in a couple of months. So that you remember this when you witness the sob story that Yuval is telling about October 7, which she did go through, but it's serving as a mask, as a cover-up.
So unfortunately, this young lady had been through some very terrible time of her life. I'm just extremely moved by the fact that she, after witnessing this kind of horrible events, didn't give up and closed herself.
So every time you hear Yuval sing or see her appearing on Eurovision, remember the crimes that her appearance is supposed to cover. Remember the many Palestinian kids like this one, who's so traumatized by the death of his family around him that he can't do anything but face the wall. He can't talk. Remember that when you hear Yuval sing.
Dreams are coming true.
So it's very important to boycott Israel and tell everyone why you're boycotting Israel at Eurovision, to make people become aware of what's actually happening here. And every time you start questioning yourself, like, why should I boycott Israel? Oh my God, that's so extreme. Remember that last year, already a year ago, Moroccan drug dealers refused to sell their hashish to Israelis as a way of protesting their participation.
This is a new one for me. Drug dealers boycotting a whole population. Drug dealers. Are we on the same page? Meanwhile, we have world leaders still confused on whether or not to condemn the occupation or sanction them. Drug dealers who have pretty much no moral compass whatsoever in what they do for a living. They were like, I wonder if I want to profit off of these people.
So if drug dealers can do it, so can you, babe. Actually, boycotting Israel is part of a movement called Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions, BDS.
Throughout history, boycotts have played a decisive role in the struggle against state oppression. The Boston Tea Party, Gandhi's Salt March, and the isolation of apartheid South Africa. And that's exactly why the Palestinian boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement has been gaining traction worldwide.
So boycotting is also boycotting the lies, poking holes in the prestige that Israel builds for itself. And the biggest lie of them all, the most dangerous one, is that Israel cares about Jews like Yuval, when it does nothing but exploit their trauma and makes them sacrifice themselves for the sake of the project. That's why the voices of anti-Zionist Jews are very important to our movement. You know, I've lip-synced to many of them already. Norman Finkelstein, Nurit Peled, Ilan Pape, but there's one that I can't believe I haven't lip-synced to so far, and his name is Avi Shleim. You can look him up, but actually, you don't need to look him up, because I brought him here.
The time has come. You to lip sync for your life.
Israel is very troubled by BDS. BDS is a global non-violent movement. And yet, the Israeli global campaign against BDS focuses on the claim that BDS is anti-Semitic. But it isn't. How could it be anti-Semitic? So it's anti-Semitic to say that the State of Israel is a racist project. The State of Israel is a racist project, and hundreds of Israelis say that openly, and they don't encounter any opposition. But here, you're not allowed to say that. So the purpose is to silence free speech on Israel. Its effect is not to protect Jews against anti-Zionism, but to silence legitimate criticism of the State of Israel. This is a very clear illustration of the strategies of Israel and its friends around the world. Anti-Semitism is a very ugly thing and can never be justified. Anti-Zionism, it's criticism of specific policies of the Israeli government, particularly policies towards the Palestinians, policies of the occupation. Most of the anti-Zionist statements that I've come across are reasonable, evidence-based, and legitimate. The problem is that Israel and its friends, and its very powerful friends around the world, deliberately conflate the two.
Last year I did the video about Israel's participation in Eurovision and how they were harassing everyone behind the scenes. And eventually got the Dutch participant disqualified. Allegedly. I did a video about it, you can watch it here. But basically, backstage, a lot of the other contestants from the other countries were scared of the Israeli delegation.
They say that this country's delegation was always around with machine guns and that they didn't feel safe at all in that environment. A Spanish journalist was also menaced after screaming "Free Palestine" in the aftermath of their performance.
A los que me he tenido que enfrentar desde que llevo cubriendo Eurovisión aquí en Malmö desde el 2011. Después de la actuación de Israel, del primer ensayo, yo he decidido gritar 2 veces Free Palestine, y eso ha hecho que un periodista israelí haya empezado a increparme, a hacerme fotos, a la acreditación, a mí mismo, y después de esto, como no tenía suficiente, pues ha venido con otros 3 periodistas israelíes que han seguido increpándome.
What do you expect from a highly militarized society that is constantly told that everyone hates them? It's almost like that they have to prove that theory in their head because they can't face that they've been lied to since birth. So they have to prove it. They have to prove that everyone hates them. So they start acting very hateful. It's like that bully, classic like bully in high school who's probably getting beaten up at home, but just bullies everyone. But after witnessing Israel's participation last year and digging deeper into this, you realize that there's one set of rules for Israel and a set of rules for everybody else, which is actually very emblematic of how they are in the world, not just in Eurovision. Like their role in Eurovision is very much like how they are at the UN, everywhere else. Like all the rules apply to everybody else except for them. They can kill, they can bomb hospitals, but for them, it's okay. And this whole thing about bending the rules for Israel, you know, in Eurovision, you're not supposed to make a song that's overtly political. And last year, the song was initially called October Rain, about October 7. But then people complained, so they changed it to Hurricane. But she eventually, Eden, the girl from last year's Eurovision, she eventually got to sing the original song to the people at UN. Once again, normalizing Israel in the eyes of everybody around the world, in the eyes of people in the West. That's why I think it's important to boycott their participation and be vocal about it. The whole reason of their participation in things like Eurovision is to tell everyone, look, Europe is okay with us. They agree. Like last year, for example, people in the room were booing Eden when she sang. But they doctored that in the live broadcast and they replaced the boos with cheers. Again, saying everybody loves what we do. Everybody agrees with us. And this year, they're back with an even bigger and stronger shield, because the contestant now is not only singing about October 7, she survived October 7. And of course, the song itself doesn't mention October 7 in the lyrics, but it's all everybody's talking about in the lead-up and in the promotion. As mentioned earlier, this video is not just about Eurovision, it's about the role of PR and propaganda for the State of Israel. Did you know about the Global Language Dictionary, which according to the Israel Project is a guide to visionary leaders who are on the front lines of fighting the media war for Israel? It is targeted at Americans and Europeans, like on page 7 where it says, be careful of your tone when you speak to Americans and Europeans. And on page 8 it says, if Americans see no hope for peace, they won't send us any money. And then on page 9, there was a part where it says, Americans want a team to cheer for. I suppose they need to update this global dictionary because right now it doesn't matter what Americans think because clearly so many Americans are against what Israel does, but they're still doing it. But the best part is when they talk about how to handle Hamas and talk about them as the obstacle to peace. This is literally a manual for how to speak written 20 years ago, and you see them talking in those same points today, verbatim.
But it's worked. It's been very successful in convincing Brussels and Washington that Hamas was ISIS. That is Israel's message. Hamas is ISIS. They're irrational. They aim to simply kill Jews. They don't have any political demands.
Now let's get back to Eurovision and our precious Israeli princess. Just notice her American accent.
And that's when everything started.
This is, again, part of the gaslighting. That they're just like people in the West. There was a BBC documentary recently called Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone. It got pulled from the BBC iPlayer. It's a very well-made documentary. It makes you see Gaza through the eyes of the children there. But the reason I bring it up now is because it's narrated by a boy with a very good English accent, i.e. relatable to the West.
Good morning. You all right? Have you ever wondered what you'd do if your world was destroyed?
Because the whole purpose of preventing a documentary like this from being broadcast is to gag the people of Gaza. The furor has focused like a laser on Abdullah al-Yazuri, the 13-year-old narrator who has committed, in the eyes of Israel's propaganda machine, 3 capital offences. First and foremost, he is alive. More than 14,500 of his peers are not. His second offence is to speak English fluently and thus be credible to a Western audience.
And Israel will not have that. Only they get to have that.
The only song that my piano ever plays.
Now, before we get into Yuval's full statement about what happened on October 7, I want to tell you about my upcoming show. It's the final performance of the show that I've been touring with for a year. And this show on April 23rd, all the revenue is dedicated to the Palestine Medical Relief Society, which I found out about from a doctor I've been talking to in Gaza. And he's going to be the subject of my next video. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. So I'm always late with these videos because I'm also coaching. Now the creativity coaching has taken off and it's amazing and so much fun. And I can't believe I'm actually working as a coach, helping people think creatively about their projects. So if you feel stuck creatively and are in need for help in that area, write me an email through the website. But just to let you know, I can't take on too many coaching clients because I also want to create as well. I can't be just talking about creating and not creating. So I also have to balance it out with things that I want to create. And I have my upcoming shows as well and videos and la la la. But I will try. Get in line, basically. I don't know what that was, but anyway. Now let's get back to Yuval and her role in the mother of all PR stunts by Israel at this year's Eurovision. By the way, right after October 7, I think everyone in the Western world was ready to back Israel up before they got carried away with their genocide.
I was rooting for you! We were all rooting for you! How dare you!
But like all people who are subconsciously stuck in the role of their victimhood, they're too self-absorbed to see the pain they inflict on others. They believe they can do anything because they felt pain. So they go in. And now the whole world turned against them. And they're like, oh, you hate us. Yes, it's true. Everybody does hate you. But not because you're Jewish. Because you murder babies. Turns out people don't like that. Who knew? Quelle surprise. Le jouer. Tu tuer le bébé. You murder babies. That's what that means. Honestly, at what point do Israelis join the rest of the world in starting to see that this has gone on way beyond October 7? At what point do you stop sinking further in this victimhood and blaming everything on anti-Semitism? At what point? You're so cringe. Really. Like, Israelis, the psychology of it is so fascinating because they're behaving like the head of a drug cartel, but also like the guy from The Office. They're so embarrassing, but they're so violent at the same time. Like, how are you those two things? How?
I was on a walk with one of my closest friends who's not Jewish. And just out of nowhere, not expecting to say this, what came out of my mouth was, will you hide me? Like, if it comes to that, will you hide me and my family?
Hide you from whom? From yourself? Because you're the only monster in sight, honey. The arms industry is behind you. The establishment media is behind you. All the political class, all the powerful politicians, and the police forces in all the countries around the world, including the Arab countries, are backing you up. Who are you scared of?
Sheryl Sandberg, the woman in that video, is worth $2.2 billion. There are currently people in the United States who are students, who are from countries with precarious visas, who are being disappeared into prisons because they oppose the state of Israel.
You know, I titled this video Masterclass in Gaslighting because it's not just Israel gaslighting the rest of the world, it's Israel gaslighting its own citizens. That's why they behave in this way. That's why Israeli Jews like Yuval, the girl from Eurovision, they believe they're fighting the good fight in Gaza. Like they're trying to destroy evil. And this is a clip of her talking about how she chose to speak up after October 7 and why, because she needs to fight.
We did an interview in the press, and it gave me strength, like to explain or to talk about it. It helps me heal a little bit because it helps me feel like I am fighting back.
Actually, there was this one promo where she did a duet with the singer from last year, Eden from last year. They were both singing the song of Eden.
Every day I'm losing my mind.
I'm losing my mind. Yeah, you are losing your mind. Yeah, you've lost your mind. And that's the doing of your government. It's taken your mind and replaced it with something that is okay with killing children. Mysterious ride. Yes. The mystery is how you let Israel continue doing this to you. That's the mysterious ride you're on. And by the way, those two girls both served in the army. Yeah. So keep that in mind as I show you a clip now of the real army of Israel, what they do. Quoting from the Bible as they gleefully watch Palestinians getting kicked out of their homes.
נגד גלים, חבר'ה, הם הביתה. אנחנו יצאנו ממצרים, קצת בשלח, אתם עכשיו יוצאים ממצרים.
That's the real army. Not mysterious, right? No. So remember to keep that 2020 vision on when you're watching Israel at the upcoming Eurovision. Now let's dive deep into this interview that she gave after October 7, already more than a year ago. Here she is describing what she and her friends felt like when they were going to the Nova Music Festival.
In Hebrew we say we were in orot, like we were in lights. We were very excited.
Orot. Orot. As if Palestinians don't want to experience orot. They don't want to be in lights and feel joy.
One of my friends waited for that party for like 6 months. It's a very, very big production.
But by the way, this big production is being held next to a concentration camp. Yeah? Where your government keeps people on a limited calorie intake. Here's a little summary of the products Palestinians were prevented from having before October 7. This is psychological warfare you're inflicting on a people. And next to those people who are deprived of the most basic needs in their lives, you're having a big production, experiencing a rot. I'm gonna swallow what I want to say right now. Yeah. But carry on with your rot.
We went to the Kanta, to our resting place, and that's when everything started. I was pretty calm about it because before October 7th, I was positioned in the army. I was the one that allows Palestinians in for work.
I was the one allowing these slaves in and out so they can come into Israel, clean our streets and build our homes. I was allowing that. Thank you for allowing it. كتر خيرك والله.
So when I saw all of that, I was like, let's just stay. Like, we're on the Gaza Strip. This is something that happens here.
Don't worry, this always happens here. The animals always remain in their cage. We don't worry because we're backed by the world's top military superpower. Nothing ever happens. Little did Yuval know that her government had gotten warnings about drills happening in Gaza, preparing for October 7th. They got many warnings.
Now, a year since October 7th, 101 hostages are yet to be brought home from Gaza. This includes 5 female Israeli soldiers, and Hamas killed 15 in their unit. Months before the attack, they had reported suspicious activity by the militant group, but their warnings were ignored. Correspondent Anat Peled investigates that failure, and she discusses all of that now with Michelle Martin.
We specifically wanted to talk with you about a report that you filed for the Wall Street Journal this week.
So these young women are known as field observers, and their job is basically to watch borders. They will have to literally sit in front of screens, and they cannot take their eyes off the screen. It's forbidden. So if they have to go, to the bathroom, they have to be replaced.
The heart of your piece is this. These soldiers sent repeated warnings of unusual and suspicious activity at the borders.
Yeah. So Maya is one of the observers who actually survived. What she was telling me, and others who were not on the base that day, is that they were seeing months leading up to the October 7th attack practice drills. So one young woman told me that she saw a training exercise, including a mock tank and a fake kidnapping going on inside Gaza.
By the way, the goal of October 7 was to extract as many political prisoners from Israel as possible, to repeat the scenario of Gilad Shalit. Gilad Shalit is a former Israeli soldier who was kidnapped in 2006. Hamas held him captive for 5 years until his release in 2011 that saw more than 1,000 Palestinian political prisoners get released. So on October 7, Hamas thought this would lead to the same thing again. They would go in, take as many political prisoners as possible, and they would be able to release more political prisoners. Little did they know that Israel would help turn this into a massacre that would provide an excuse and a reason for the ethnic cleansing that's happening today. So yes, of course, Hamas was involved in those attacks, but a big number of the 1,200 Israelis that were killed were also killed by Israeli fire.
According to Yasmin Porat, who had fled the electronic music festival, which had come under attack, which was held right between Kibbutz Be'eri and Kibbutz Re'im, which also have military bases. And she recounted to Israeli national radio that when the Israeli special forces arrived, they just started shooting everyone.
בגינה של האנשים מהקיבוץ שיש 5 בני ערובה ששוכבים או 6 על האדמה בחוץ, ממש כצאן לטבח מול הירי של הימ"מ שלנו והמחבלים.
הטרוריסטים ירו בהם?
לא. הם נהרגו מהחילופי ירי, תבין שהיה חילופי ירי מאוד מאוד קשים.
זאת אומרת, יכול להיות שזה כוחותינו ירו בהם? כשניסו לפסל את החוטפים, את החמאס?
הם חיסלו את כולם, כולל הבני ערובה. כי היה שם חילופי ירי מאוד מאוד קשים.
She saw her own partner, whose hands had been bound by her captors, get shot by Israeli special forces, and then they lobbed 2 tank shells into the home that she had been in. So if you look at the pictures of Kibbutz Be'eri, they look like homes in Gaza that I've seen, or you may have seen, that came under shelling from Israeli tanks and Israeli artillery.
In other words, Hamas's weapons are incapable of inflicting that type of damage. But of course, Israeli Jews like Yuval believe that their government has their best interest at heart. Of course, why wouldn't they? Why would they believe that their government would put them in harm's way? Did you know that the location of the Nova Music Festival was just outside Kibbutz Re'im, which also happens to enclose a military outpost and is the location of Israel Laser, a laser cutting facility protected by a battery of tanks because the company's products are meant for Israel's Ministry of Defense. So why would you sandwich a dance party between a military outpost and the Gaza border? where according to you all these terrorists live. Why throw a party there?
That's suspicious.
And interestingly, the location of the party wasn't originally there. It was moved only 2 days before the date of the party, for reasons that remain undisclosed.
That's weird.
But then, after a few minutes, everyone started screaming, like, you have to evacuate, this party is done. When we connected to the 232 road, we started seeing cars going around, like going back. We asked someone to stop the car. He opened the window and we asked him what is going on. And they were saying that there is probably a terrorist on the road. Adal, the one driving the car, she remembered we saw 2 bomb shelters on both sides of the roads. She decided she wanted to go inside the bomb shelter.
The assault began around like 6 a.m. at daybreak. And by 10:30 a.m., according to Israeli media accounts, all of the special forces commando teams, the well-trained Hamas teams, had already left. By that point, there were 2 squadrons of Apache helicopters that had been scrambled, and they were not even at full strength until 12 p.m.
The most curious thing about this whole thing is, why did Israel take so long to react and send the helicopters and the army to help the Israeli captives?
When we went inside, I was constantly with my dad on the phone. And that's when we started hearing gunshots outside. So I'm telling my dad, the military is here. And then a few minutes later, they started screaming, we have a wounded person outside.
By the way, do you know about something called the Hannibal directive? It's that controversial procedure used by Israel to prevent the captures of Israelis by the enemy. In other words, they prefer to Israelis die than have them be captured and used as leverage in negotiations, which is the polar opposite of what they tell us this whole war is about, like, bring them home, bring the hostages back. They don't want to bring them home.
כשאתה רואה את השיירות חוצות את הגדר עם חטופים ישראלים, גם לשאול מה עובר לך בראש, וגם נוהל חניבל זה משהו שאתם חושבים עליו באותו רגע?
נוהל חניבל, רק נגיד, הנוהל שאומר לירות על מנת להרוג כאשר יש רכב עם חטוף ישראלי.
אני רוצה שתבינו שהיכולת של שר ביטחון לתת הוראות אופרטיביות בלוח זמנים שהכל קורה היא דבר מאוד מוגבל.
ניתנה הוראה לנוהל חניבל?
אני חושב שבאופן טקטי במקומות שונים ניתנה.
Of course, Israeli Jews like Yuval would never want to face the reality that their own government would sacrifice them in this way. Why would you? That's like acknowledging that your parent doesn't love you. That's a hard pill to swallow. So it's always the terrorists. And notice how they talk about Palestinians always like as if it's a movie and there's the bad guys on the other side. In such contrast to how she talks about dad, my dad, my dad, my daddy, my dad, my dad. Because this girl is media trained at how to tuck at the heartstrings.
I just deliver everything to my dad back to the phone. Like, that's when the terrorists found us. First of all, they shot everyone that was in the pathway, and then they came inside. And then what I remember is the pace of the gunshots. Boom, 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 boom. And so I looked to my friends, they were alive. I remembered my leg really hurting, and then I looked to my leg and I had this dead body all over my leg.
I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you that this is a daily occurrence for Palestinians for the last 16 months. And they have no chance of getting out and making a song about it.
15 humanitarian workers have just been found in a mass grave with at least one person with their hands tied behind their back. These were Palestinian paramedics and rescue workers. They were buried in their uniforms with their vehicles in the mass burial. The evidence shows that these people had their lives taken from them one by one, and when they came under attack by the Israeli Defense Forces, you can hear on a phone call the Israeli soldiers approaching the vehicles and somebody saying, grab something to tie their hands up with.
After the first shooting, I called my dad to tell him I'm alive, and I was like, Dad, there is dead people, you have to call the police, you have to tell them to get to us.
אני שולח עכשיו, ממי, תהי רגועה, תשארי איתי על הקו, אל תנתקי ממני את הקו, טוב? יובלי, רגע, ויש שם מחבלים עדיין?
מסתובבים, אבא תשלחו ניידות.
תהי מתה, יובלי, תהי מתה, תנתקי את הטלפון ממני, תהי מתה.
I'm actually very curious about the recording of this call. Like, who would have the presence of mind to record this call, like either him or her. Now I understand if calls by the police or by dispatchers like the ambulance are recorded because those are official calls that are always recorded. But I'm struggling to put myself in the shoes of someone who's going through such panic. They're being chased by terrorists. How would you think to start recording this call, the several calls, because she was hanging up and calling back, like when you're in that state of panic? And also, if you're already recording, wouldn't you want to record video as well to show us what's going on? Where's the video? By the way, in completely unrelated news, the head of the Shin Bet was fired by Netanyahu because he was actually leading interrogations into calls that were doctored on October 7. Israeli media reported that Netanyahu's chief of staff is suspected of changing the recorded time of a conversation Netanyahu had with the military secretary in the first few minutes on the morning of October 7. Now, I know what's happening in your mind. You're like, Netanyahu, what an asshole. Like, if only we can get rid of him. But actually, Netanyahu is nothing but the symptom of the problem. This hugely problematic, disgusting psychopath of a man is definitely a problem. But he's not the root of it. But it's very tempting to believe that he's the problem. Let's just get rid of him because Israeli society is just nothing but victims. And they are victims. They're victims of Israel. But because they don't want to acknowledge that, so they will continue to exaggerate, fabricate, just add to the lies to convince themselves.
I took my phone and I started calling the police constantly. And they were like, send me your location. And it was very bad signal inside the bomb shelter.
So the reception when you were talking with your dad was clear, crystal clear, but when you tried calling the police, the signal went bad. Interesting.
And it was very bad signal. And it was very bad signal.
So why am I doubting this, right? Because I don't think she's a liar. She probably doesn't even know that. I don't know what's going on in her mind. I'm not like living inside her head. But the reason why I'm doubting or casting doubt is because so many lies came up out of Israel, and everything that Israel says officially is such a blatant lie. Also about the most, like, who lies about babies dying? When you see those things, you're like, are they lying now? So it's almost like you don't want to be that person who accuses people of lying, but when you see how much they lie with such ease, by the way, they just make shit up and then they move on. Let's go to an example.
Visiting celebrities continue to be shown babies' cribs, and the world continues to be told stories about murdered babies.
When you're taking babies, cutting them and tying them together and burning them to death, you're treating them less than an animal.
1,300 people dead, murdered, babies.
These bastards put these babies in an oven and put on the oven. We found the kid a few hours later.
The official death toll included one baby. And one baby is already one baby too many. So that's horrible death. But why do you have to make up all these lies? These are the official Israeli records.
If you look at the confirmed death count, only one Israeli baby was killed. And it's, horrible and tragic. There's a 10-month-old baby named Millie Cohen who was accidentally shot by a Hamas gunman in an exchange of fire. And more reporting will come out about this. But you can look at the confirmed death toll at Haaretz. There's no other baby. There's no baby burned in an oven. No one's even saying that. So what we're looking at is the most horrific, lurid propaganda.
Perhaps the most twisted, though, lie, and the most persistent one is that of the rape.
Israel still can't find any October 7th rape victims. There's no testimony. There's no evidence.
Moran Gaz, a former lead prosecutor in Israel's Southern District Prosecutor's Office, stated that her department has found no evidence of sexual violence. Despite the lack of evidence, Gaz maintained her hardline views, and she actually says that, okay, fine, maybe there weren't any rape, but anybody who got in, even if they went in to pick avocados, they're still not worthy of living. So in a way, yeah, maybe we exaggerate, maybe we made it up, who knows, but the point is, these Gazans need to die. And the danger with these false claims of rape is that they were repeated by officials from around the world, outside of Israel. Like German officials in Germany. How the fuck is happening in Germany, babes? Wow. I think in their need to prove that they're not who they once were, and you still are those people, you're only doing it to Muslims now instead of Jews, but in that desperate need to prove that they're not the Nazis they once were, they are now lying. Just check out this clip of the German foreign minister claiming that she saw videos of rape.
Dann wurde mir parallel der Film gezeigt dessen, was nicht ich oder die israelische Regierung aufgenommen hat, sondern Hamas-Kämpfer mit ihren, wie heißen die, GoPro-Kameras an ihren Helmen. Und wissen Sie, was ich da gesehen habe? Das war das Schlimmste, was man sich vorstellen kann. Ich habe es mir angeschaut, weil ich wissen wollte, was dort passiert ist. Und zu erleben, wie eine Frau vor laufender Kamera vergewaltigt wird. Wollen Sie immer noch bei vergewaltigten Frauen dazwischen schreien?
I think in the heat of the moment, because she's getting kind of like heckled from somebody in the crowd, she's like, are you going to interrupt me when I talk about rape of a woman? I saw the rape of a... There's no videos of any rape of a woman. Yes, there were videos of October 7th, people running, and these were horrible. But to say there were videos of rape when there were none...
You're a liar, a cheater, a sinner.
Wollen Sie immer noch bei vergewaltigten Frauen dazwischen schreien?
And of course, who are we to doubt the beautiful Israeli angelic woman? Which is the whole message of this. How could you doubt a woman? Of course, nobody wants to doubt a woman. But this state of Israel is not a woman, no matter how hard. Because, by the way, this whole thing of sending women, beautiful, angelic women to Eurovision is to personify, is to make you perceive Israel as a woman, as a gentle woman that's being taken advantage of by the barbarians around her. But this is not what Israel is. This is a cover. Keep that in mind. How dare you doubt these women? We're not doubting these women. We're doubting the state that murders children and uses these women as a cover. That's what we're doubting. How dare you? She's so beautiful.
My God, she's gorgeous. What the heck?
She's so beautiful and extremely not brown. She's so white and beautiful. Oh.
After constantly calling the police for 4 hours and them constantly coming inside the bomb shelters, shooting more and more people, my leg felt like it was gonna explode. It was so hot inside.
It must have been indeed very uncomfortable to feel that much heat, right? But as your psyche starts to soften when you listen to her, remember the discomfort that Palestinians are feeling.
Shocking video of paramedics being shot at by Israeli troops in the occupied West Bank as they tried to help a Palestinian grandmother who had herself been shot by Israeli soldiers. Filmed by a bystander, it shows how shots rang out as the medics carried a stretcher and had their ambulance lights on.
By the way, our girl Yuval, like all Israeli Jews, doesn't want to acknowledge this pain that her army and her country inflicts on Palestinians. The army that she's a part of. And the only way to escape from those very confronting thoughts about who you are and what you are inflicting on Palestinians is to go to anti-Semitism. Even when it's not there, by the way, there are so many cases around the world of made-up anti-Semitism. Of course, there is real anti-Semitism, and I see it online, by the way. And interestingly, it doesn't come from Arabs. There are so many American and European people who are genuinely anti-Semitic writing comments on my videos. They're like, we support you. No, we're not the same, babes. We don't hate Jews, okay? This is not what's happening here at all. So yes, there is real anti-Semitism, but fighting for Palestinian liberation is not anti-Semitic. But because you can't deal with that, again, cognitive dissonance that keeps coming up because it's so relevant all the time, you have to make up anti-Semitism to validate what you've been taught. And this intense level of denying and lying to yourself will actually make you crazy. Check out this guy in New Zealand attacking people who are protesting against the genocide with such fear and hatred and anger.
Anti-Semite! 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 Come on! Are you going to do what you did to them on the 7th of October? Are you going to do to them? You anti-Semite!
These are people who are saying no to genocide, no to bombing hospitals. How are they anti-Semite? And again, I don't think this guy is bad. I think he's just like, has temporary insanity. Like something has taken over his, see his eyes? Like he's not even there. You're an anti-Semite. And by the way, I blame the architects of the Zionist project for stoking these fears, these fires.
What was first deemed an anti-Semitic terrorist plot in Sydney has now been exposed as a complete hoax.
Essentially a criminal con job.
Australian authorities have linked a recent wave of firebombings and malicious graffiti to organized crime and have traced an abandoned explosive-laden caravan found near a Jewish-populated neighborhood in Sydney to the same criminal group.
Today, I can reveal that the caravan was never going to cause a mass casualty event, but instead was concocted by criminals who wanted to cause fear for personal benefit. What organised crime has done to the Jewish community is reprehensible, and it won't go without consequences. There was also unwarranted suspicion directed at other communities.
What I find very interesting with that clip is that she felt the need to highlight the pain of the Jewish community, fair, without even mentioning the pain of the other community that's being affected by these lies. It's like there's this universal effort, need, desire, obligation, duty to protect the feelings of Israelis, which, okay, I guess you could say fine, fair, if you want. Maybe you're making up for what happened 100 years ago, which Palestinians didn't do, you did, but that's fine. Let's say you feel that need. But what about the feelings of people who are still dying now? And let's go with the fact that what you think the other side is all Hamas, right? Let's go with that. If the Hamas terrorists were to hide in an American or European or Israeli hospital, does that justify bombing those hospitals? Would you be okay with bombing an American or Israeli hospital? Wouldn't you be sending a rescue mission and documenting and making a movie about it? Because it's the honorable thing to do is to rescue children. Because actually this again points to the fact that you find Palestinian lives, Palestinian children, Arab lives, Arab children, just collateral damage that they can die. That's how subhuman we are in your eyes and in the eyes of the Israeli government. But what's even sicker about this whole Israel project is that Israel pretends to value the lives of Jewish Israeli children. Israeli Jews serve as the thing Israel needs to protect, so as long as they stay and protect that project. But deep down inside, they know something is off. They know deep down inside, they know something's off with this project that sacrifices them.
I remember the last conversation with one of the people that answered the phone from the police. That's where I snapped, telling him, but that's not true. No one is coming. No one is coming. It's been 4 freaking hours.
You're right. There's actually a reason why the police aren't coming for you. Your bodies are being sacrificed for this project, which no doubt probably feels like a home for you. And not just your bodies are being sacrificed, your souls as well. Because Israel managed to get you to a point where you can say with a full chest, without even thinking that you're doing anything wrong, the Palestinian babies need to die for me to be safe. Like you say it so openly. That's how much your soul, your mind, whatever you want to call it, has been also sacrificed and taken over by Israel. There's this one clip of just an everyday Israeli civilian trying to block the way on the highway for a Palestinian ambulance, preventing the ambulance from being able to reach the hospital. What happens to you in your brain that you become okay with that? What happens inside you, inside your head, inside your soul? And where is your soul anyway? Held hostage by the project, I assume. This project, which is nothing more than a face for the arms industry.
Then you have these Apache helicopter pilots in the air who were stating in their testimonies in Hebrew to Israeli media that they had no intelligence, no way of distinguishing civilian from combatant on the ground, and yet they were told to empty their tanks, just completely unload their ammo, then head back to the base, get filled up again, reload, and then go shoot as many cars and people as they can on the ground.
From the beginning, Israel was not even willing to go into the tunnels. Go back to October, November 2023. The operations were never about rescuing hostages. Never. In fact, Israeli soldiers were given explicit orders, do not enter the tunnels.
One day in the future, everyone will know about what Israel Project did to its own people. Not just because now the world sees what they do to Palestinians. But in the future, people are going to look back and say, oh my God, they were also using the Israelis as well. Being an Israeli Jew is like being the child of a serial killer, drug kingpin who's on the run and keeps putting his family's lives at risk. And then convinces his kids that the world is out to get them for nothing other than their race. Not that he's putting them in danger by committing all these crimes.
And I was just tired. I was so tired. I didn't want to call them anymore. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And I started asking myself, when is this going to end? My leg was the hardest part of everything. I could feel my bones in this part starting to crack.
As sad as that is to hear about her leg, I want to remind you what it's there to cover. Because there's this group in the US called Bitar, a group which is behind all the arrests, by the way, of all the students who protest for Palestine. This group on its Twitter page said, "We demand more blood from Gazan children." This is what Israel is. Remember that when you hear the song, New Day will rise. Remember.
I did find the strength the next time they came to fight more and
it's like she's piecing together a narrative. Again, not that she's lying. I'm sure she went through these things, but her brain is racing to piece together a story of triumph. And you know Steven Spielberg is already writing a script for a movie about her.
So, after a few hours, at one point they started throwing grenades inside. Like, the bombing was so strong.
Did you notice that nervous gulp that she took? This actually reminds me of that Zaka group of volunteers, whose testimonies became the basis of all the international reports about October 7. Their tear-filled testimonies. On November 23, 2023, Netanyahu met with the Zaka volunteers. The meeting revolved around their role in the Israeli propaganda.
אבל אנחנו צריכים לקנות זמן. זמן אנחנו קונים על ידי הפנייה גם למנהיגים וגם לדעת הקהל. ויש לכם חלק חשוב בהשפעה על דעת הקהל שמשפיע גם על מנהיגים. אנחנו בתוך המלחמה היא תימשך.
And 10 days before meeting with Netanyahu, the Israeli website Ynet published a report about how Zaka was recruited to join Israel's Hasbara campaigns on the events of October 7, and conducted interviews with dozens of foreign journalists coordinated through the government press office. Zaka is a religious organization specializing in collecting dead bodies and transporting them to the morgues according to strict Jewish religious laws. And conveniently, they have a radical religious stance against autopsies and forensic procedures. In other words, all the bodies on October 7 were buried without any forensic autopsies. Even though these Zaka volunteers are straight up lying and crying while they're lying, the rest of the Israeli public, who are actually innocent in all this, if you think about it, they have to start joining the lie to go ahead with the narrative.
And then, because a lot of us had our phones, I remember someone saying something about the internet is saying that the military is now handling the situation.
There goes that weak signal suddenly working again. Also, once again, wouldn't all these people who are checking their phones for internet and updates, wouldn't they think to record any of this? Because there's no recorded video footage of any of this, by the way. All these young people on their phones, checking, Nobody. People these days film themselves farting. And this you don't film?
Picked it up and I called my dad. He told me on the phone, I found a rescuer. And then it hasn't been half an hour, but someone started screaming like, is there anyone here that needs rescue? Anyone here that needs rescue?
And the brave Israeli men come to the rescue to save the lady who will go on to sing about her ordeal. Again, the constant talk about her dad really just shapes this narrative for you that Israeli men, unlike Palestinian men, are just, brave. They always just do the right thing, which I'm sure there are amazing Israeli men. But it really is very interesting when you think, because there was another hostage that came out like a year ago, and she talked about the one who had like Angelina Jolie kind of lips.
יש מחבל שמסתכל עליך 24/7. מסתכל, אונס אותך עם העיניים. אשתו הייתה מחוץ לחדר עם הילדים. זאת הייתה הסיבה היחידה שהוא לא אנס.
The whole time when she was held hostage, she was afraid of being raped. But she says she was never raped. That same girl was raped by her Israeli fitness instructor, who drugged her 3 nights before her wedding. I want you to take this opportunity to go dive deep into the many documented cases of rape by Israeli soldiers of Palestinian women, Palestinian kids in prison. And by the way, Palestinian kids are in prison. That's actually a sentence that we can say, like, Israel jails children. But anyway.
And so everyone started getting up, like, all of a sudden, everyone. So when Adar, my friend, got up, and she looked at me like I wasn't even talking. She was just staring at me like this.
When you hear Israelis talk about October 7, it's almost like they're validated that finally everything that they've been taught and brainwashed with is happening. So the way they talk about October 7 is just, I don't know what the psychological term is.
You're a victim. Here we go, CSI.
But anyway, like when she talks about her friend being shell-shocked,
she was just staring at me like this.
Do you know how many Palestinian kids who just witness death on a daily basis and continue for 16 months? Those kids are shell-shocked as well, by the way. Hi! But of course, all that is worth rescuing this beautiful, European-looking, American-sounding girl. No price is high enough for our princess. New day! Rise! Wow. Wow. Eviscerate all of Gaza.
But now I feel like this is my way of fighting this.
And I love the framing of it. Like that we have to fight. What are you fighting, babes? What are you fighting? Your inner demons? Are you fighting the part of yourself that's telling you you're being lied to? Because that's a fight worth fighting. With a therapist who's preferably not a Zionist therapist. Honestly, like, jokes aside, like, what is there left in Gaza that you're still there? And let's say this was about October 7. Why are you bombing Lebanon? How do you still believe this is about October 7? Your enemy is truth, honey. That's what you're fighting.
I don't accept that this is at all Jewish. I think what happened in the last 80 years since the Holocaust is that Zionism has not only occupied Palestine, but it occupied the mind of Jews.
The good news is that Israel's propaganda machine is not working. Public opinion in all the Western nations whose media and festivals practice this censorship is turning rapidly pro-Palestinian. The trend is sharpest in America, where 59% of Democrats sympathize with the Palestinian people, a 16-point jump in last year.
And on that note, keep telling the truth. Keep telling the story of Palestine, the people of Palestine, who have known nothing but suffering and injustice for almost 80 years now. And forget the 80 years, just the last 16 months alone. Can you imagine what it must be like to live in that for 16 months? People are tired. They're exhausted. And even if you believe that claim of, but they still support Hamas, first of all, 55% of Gazans are children. Are you expecting children to overthrow the rulers? Like, I don't get it. And also, this is collective punishment, which is an international war crime. To punish a population, that's what you call terrorism, for a political end. Anyway, the point of this video is to boycott Israel. And besides Eurovision, download the No Thanks app, tell you all the products. You can scan any product in the supermarket, and if it supports Israel, boycott it. And finally, I would just say that the people of Palestine deserve peace. And speaking of the people in Palestine, if you follow my channel, you know I'm obsessed with a little potato that lives in Gaza, who goes by the name of Sila, who decided just casually to put on a pink dress for Eid, thinking she's not gonna destroy me with this image. Sila, honey, where's your neck? Where is it? Excuse me, I'm talking to you. Sila! What, you're just gonna smile at your dad and ignore me? You know what, Sila? I can't with you. Just take it away. Teleport us to another planet. Planet that is just and fair, unlike the shitty one that we live in. Just take it away, Sila.
إذا بدنا نعيش هيك في ظل احتلال في ظل ظلم ومعنا بلا من هالحياة، كأني إذا بمسك حجر أو برمي على الجيش كأني برفض هاي المعاناة.
ما هو الشعار؟ ثورة حتى النصر. لماذا؟ لماذا؟
أجا جندي بقول أول إسرائيل، قال له أخوي أول فلسطين. بالفعل هاي أول فلسطين، هاي بلادنا، هاي شو نحبها.
شباب رجاء، هذا مصيرنا واحنا قبلناه. احنا نزلنا الميدان وعارفين اخرتنا ايش. المنظر هذا مش انشاء. احنا الا القيت يقولوا في نداء بدنا نتوجه له. القيت يقولوا في نداء بدنا نسيبهم ونتوجه له. اصحوا ديروا بالكم. ديروا بالكم يا رجال، انتوا سودنا. ديروا بالكم، انا بقول لكم انتوا رجالنا ورجال الميدان، لا اخر نفس فينا احنا موجودين. ديروا بالكم.